The quarter stuck before the young mother even finished loading the washer. I heard it, not loud, just a dull little catch inside the coin return, the kind of sound most people miss because dryers are thumping and children are dragging baskets across the floor. The laundromat was already busy that morning. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Warm air rolled out from the dryer row. Folding tables were crowded with towels, jeans, and white plastic baskets. A little boy sat on top of one basket, swinging his shoes while his mother searched her purse for more quarters. I stood beside the coin machine, not in anybody's way. At least I didn't think I was. The old change tray under the coin return had a shine of water across it. Somebody must have set a damp towel there again. Wet quarters always caused trouble if they slid back into the slot. I reached for the tray. "Dad!" Melanie's voice cut through the room before my fingers touched the metal. I stopped. She came from behind the counter with a stack of folded drop-off slips in one hand and worry all over her face. Her hair was pulled back too tight. Her cheeks were red. She had been working alone since 6. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Just checking the tray," I said. "You are always checking something." A dryer door slammed behind me. The mother with the stuck quarter looked over. So did Darlene Pike, who was folding nurse scrubs at the long table by the window. Melanie lowered her voice, but not enough. "Customers don't know what to think when you hover around the machines," she said. "You confuse people." I felt my hand fall to my side. "I wasn't hovering. You were touching the coin return again." She looked around the room, embarrassed now, and that made her sharper. "Dad, this is my business. I can't have you hanging around like you work here." The little boy stopped swinging his feet. Then Melanie said it. "You're not helping," she said. "You're making us look bad." "Standing around like this makes you look useless, Dad. It's bad for business." The words landed harder than the dryer doors. I looked at my daughter, tired, scared, proud enough to hurt me instead of asking why I had reached for the tray. I nodded once. "All right," I said. I took my cap from the folding table and walked toward the door. Nobody spoke. The bell above the entrance gave one small ring as I stepped outside. Behind me, under the damp change tray, the folded coin box repair slip stayed where my hand had almost found it. The bell over the laundromat door was still shaking after Frank left. For a few seconds, nobody moved. The dryers kept turning. The little boy on the basket looked at Melanie, then at the door, like he was waiting for someone to say the room had gone too quiet. Melanie pressed her lips together and turned back toward the counter. "Sorry about that," she said, too quickly. "The coin return sticks sometimes. I'll take care of it." The young mother tried the quarter again. It dropped, caught, and came back with a flat metal click. Darlene Pike folded one scrub top, then stopped with both hands on the fabric. "Melanie," she said gently, "I think there's something under that tray." Melanie glanced down. "It's probably just lint." Tasha Bell stepped out from the back with a spray bottle in one hand. She had heard enough to know not to speak too fast. "I can check it," Tasha said. She lifted the old change tray, careful because one corner always stuck to the counter when it was damp. A thin folded paper came loose from underneath and slid against the coin machine. It was gray at the edges, softened from steam and wet quarters. Melanie reached for it before Tasha could. For a moment she only stared at the outside. There was no envelope, no big warning, no dramatic mark. Just a folded service slip with oil-smudged corners and a faded line across the top. Darlene stepped closer, but not too close. "What is it?" she asked. Melanie unfolded it. Her face changed before she said a word. Tasha saw it too. "That's a coin box repair slip." Melanie looked at the coin return, then back at the paper. Her thumb moved over the date. The service time was written plainly, after closing. The customer contact was written plainly too. Frank Whitaker. Melanie swallowed once. "That can't be right," she said. The young mother shifted her laundry basket against her hip. "Was that your dad's name?" Melanie did not answer her. The slip had one short note at the bottom, written in a repairman's blocky hand. It said the coin box had been sticking before a weekend rush, and access was arranged after hours. Tasha's voice dropped. Melanie, he must have called somebody. Melanie folded the paper halfway, then stopped. Her eyes went back to the damp tray, the stuck quarter, and the door Frank had just walked through. The laundromat was still running around her, but for the first time that morning, Melanie looked unsure what had been keeping it that way. Melanie carried the folded coin box repair slipped behind the counter like it might burn her fingers. She set it beside the register, smoothed it flat, and read the number printed at the bottom. Eddie Ramos. Coin machine repair and laundromat appliance service. Tasha stayed near the end of the counter, quiet now. Darlin went back to folding scrubs, but her eyes kept drifting toward the slip. Melanie dialed the number before she could talk herself out of it. A man answered on the fourth ring. Ramos Service. This is Melanie Whitaker from Whitaker Wash, she said. I found an old coin box repair slip with my father's name on it. There was a pause on the line. Frank? Eddie said. Melanie looked down at the slip again. Yes, Frank Whitaker. That wasn't old, Eddie said. That was last month. Melanie's grip tightened around the phone. She lowered her voice. My father called you? He did, Eddie said. Said your front coin box had a sticky return and a weak latch. Told me it would start kicking quarters back by Saturday if it wasn't cleaned and reset. Melanie stared across the laundromat at the same coin machine. He told you all that? Yes, ma'am. And he was right. The words sat heavy between them. Eddie kept talking, plain and calm. I came after closing because Frank said you couldn't afford another machine sitting idle during weekend laundry. He let me in, stood there with a flashlight, and showed me the sound it made. Melanie glanced at Tasha. Tasha did not look surprised. Melanie hated that more than she expected. I thought he was just touching things, Melanie said. Eddie gave a small breath through the phone, not quite a laugh. Your father doesn't touch machines for no reason. The laundromat door opened, and 2 customers came in with black trash bags full of clothes. Melanie watched them head straight for the washers Frank always checked first. He never told me, she said. No, Eddie answered. He said you had enough on you. That sentence made Melanie turn away from the room. Eddie did not accuse her. He did not explain Frank's whole life. He only told her what he knew from that one repair. Frank heard the problem early, called before it got worse, and made sure the work happened when customers would not lose machines. Before hanging up, Eddie said, I'll tell you this, Melanie. Your father knew that coin box better than anyone in that building. Melanie looked at the slip again. Then Eddie added, and that wasn't the first time he noticed something before it failed. Melanie did not hang up right away. She stood behind the counter with the phone still against her ear, listening to the empty line after Eddie ended the call. The laundromat sounded louder now. Water filling, dryers turning, quarters dropping, customers opening metal doors. Tasha touched the edge of the counter. You okay? Melanie folded the coin box repair slip once, then opened it again. Eddie said there were other service records. Tasha's eyes moved toward the small drawer under the register. Melanie noticed. What? I don't know, Tasha said. Maybe check the drawer where you keep old repair papers. Melanie pulled it open too fast. Pens rolled forward. Rubber bands snapped loose. Beneath a pile of outdated coupons and washer refund slips, she found a thin stack of yellow service copies clipped together. She took them out and spread them beside the register. Most were ordinary. Belt adjustment, dryer door switch, coin return cleaning. But one invoice made her stop. The date was 3 weeks before the repair slip. At the top, Eddie's company name was printed in blue. Under service request, someone had written, 2 front-load washers making uneven spin sound, slow drain near end of cycle, possible seal issue. Melanie stared at the words. She had heard customers complain about those washers later. She remembered blaming cheap detergent, then old pipes, then people overloading machines. But this invoice was dated before the complaints got bad. Tasha leaned in. Who called that one in? Melanie already knew before she found the contact line. Frank Whitaker. She pressed her fingers against her forehead. Darlene walked over slowly with a folded pile of scrubs against her chest. "Honey, is that about your father?" Melanie did not answer right away. The young mother from earlier came to the counter with a handful of damp quarters. "Should I use a different washer?" Melanie looked across the room. Two customers were loading the same front row Frank always watched when he came in. For the first time, she saw the machines the way he must have seen them. Not as old equipment making her look bad, but as tired pieces of work that gave warnings before they failed. Tasha pointed to the lower corner of the invoice. "There's a note." Melanie turned the page toward herself. Eddie had written one sentence beneath the service line. Customer's father described the sound exactly. Melanie read it twice. Then a washer near the front gave a faint, uneven thump, soft enough that most people would miss it. Melanie heard it. The uneven thump came again, soft under the larger noise of the room. Melanie stood behind the counter, still holding Eddie's invoice, and watched the fourth washer turn through its cycle. A pair of jeans slapped the glass once, then the drum gave that same little wobble. She had heard it before. Not clearly. Not the way Frank must have heard it. To her, it had always been just another old machine complaining in an old laundromat. Melanie looked down the hall toward the back room. The door was half open, blocked by a mop bucket and a stack of paper towel boxes. Frank used to disappear in there for a few minutes every morning, and she used to think he was just avoiding customers. She walked back slowly. The back room smelled like detergent, warm dust, and dryer lint. There were shelves of folded rags, spare hoses, empty soap jugs, and a small wooden stool pushed under the work counter. Frank's stool. Melanie did not touch it at first. She opened the cabinet above the counter. Nothing but cleaner bottles and old coffee cans full of screws. Then she opened the narrow drawer beneath it and found a black spiral notebook with the corners bent soft from use. On the front, in Frank's plain handwriting, were 4 words. Washer notes. Do not toss. Melanie's throat tightened. She opened to the first page and found dates, machine numbers written out in words, and short notes that sounded exactly like her father. Second washer slow to drain after heavy blankets. Front washer squeaks when overloaded. The fourth washer makes a soft knock during spin. Listen again Friday. Melanie turned another page. There were customer complaints written down too. Not names, just problems. Clothes too wet. Soap left in door, gasket. Quarter returned twice. Dryer taking longer with towels. None of it sounded dramatic. That made it worse. It was patient. Ordinary. Repeated. The kind of work nobody noticed unless it stopped being done. Melanie leaned one hand against the counter. She remembered Frank standing near the washers with his cap pulled low, head tilted slightly, listening. She remembered rolling her eyes because he looked like a man trying to hear a secret from a machine. Now the notebook made that memory feel different. The fourth washer appeared again near the middle of the page. Soft knock. Watch before weekend. 2 pages later, it appeared again. Same sound. Getting worse. Then, on the page dated that morning, before the argument, Frank had circled it one more time. The fourth washer. Melanie looked back toward the open laundromat door and heard the faint, uneven thump again. This time, she knew Frank had heard it first. Melanie brought the black spiral notebook out of the back room and set it on the counter beside the repair invoice. Tasha froze when she saw it. Melanie noticed the look. "You've seen this before." Tasha wiped both hands on her apron, even though they were already dry. "Yes, how many times?" Tasha glanced toward the washers, then toward the customers folding clothes by the windows. "A lot." Melanie opened the notebook to the page with the fourth washer circled. "Why didn't you tell me Dad was keeping this?" "Because you didn't want to hear about it," Tasha said softly. The answer landed clean and hard. Melanie looked down at the notebook. "That's not fair." Tasha did not argue. She only reached over and turned back a few pages. "See this one?" she said, pointing to a note about a slow drain. A lady came in with 3 bags of towels. Your dad told me not to put her on that washer because he thought it would leave them too wet. Melanie stared at the line. I moved her to the back row, Tasha said. No refund, no complaint. She came back the next week. Tasha turned another page. This one was a man who kept saying the dryer ate his money. Your dad wrote down which door didn't latch right. I checked it before the man came back, and we avoided another argument. Melanie's mouth tightened. Tasha was not blaming her. That somehow made it worse. He helped me, Tasha said. When you were busy with drop-offs, bills, vendors, all of it, he would just point to the notebook and say, "Watch that one today." A washer door slammed across the room. Melanie flinched, but Tasha kept her voice low. He never made me feel stupid for not knowing. He just showed me what to listen for. Melanie looked at the customers now. Not one of them seemed confused by the notebook. Not one looked offended by the idea that Frank had been watching the machines. Darlene Pike stepped up with her folded scrubs. Your father helped me once when a washer left my work pants soaked, she said. He didn't fuss. He just knew which one to move me to. Melanie's eyes dropped back to the page. The notebook was not just Frank's habit. It had been helping other people do their jobs. Tasha closed it halfway, then stopped. The rough days started when he stopped writing as much. Melanie looked toward the empty space by the coin machine where Frank usually stood. For the first time, she wondered how many problems had started the moment she decided his help was the problem. The dryer row sounded different once. Melanie stopped pretending all machine noise was the same. 3 dryers turned in a steady rhythm. The 4th one had a faint scrape when the load got heavy, like a button dragging across metal. Tasha followed Melanie's eyes. He checked those every morning. Melanie looked at her. The dryers? The lint traps first, Tasha said. Then the doors. Then the coin slides. Melanie almost said, I know, but she didn't. She had seen Frank do it. She had called it hovering, fussing, wasting time. Tasha walked to the narrow shelf beside the dryer row and moved a stack of dryer sheets. Behind them was a laminated paper, yellowed at the corners, held flat with a strip of old tape. Melanie pulled it free. Dryer lint-trap checklist. The words were written in Frank's careful hand, large enough for anyone to read. Morning clear. Midday check. Towels after heavy loads. Watch left side vent. Do not skip if dryers are full. Melanie stared at the last line. Do not skip if dryers are full. She remembered saying almost those exact words to him with irritation. Dad, nobody needs a lecture about lint. Tasha pointed to a small mark beside Saturday mornings. He added that after 2 customers complained their towels took forever. Melanie looked down the row of dryers. I thought he was just making work for himself. He was making less work for us, Tasha said. A customer opened a dryer and pulled out a blanket, still damp at the middle. She frowned and started feeding more quarters into the slot. Tasha spoke before Melanie could. That dryer needs the lint trap cleared twice when people run blankets. Melanie looked at her. Tasha nodded toward the checklist. That's on there. Melanie stepped over, opened the lint screen, and found it packed tight with gray lint and soft blue fuzz. She cleaned it slowly, feeling every customer in the room without looking up. The woman with the blanket said, Your dad used to remind me about that one. Melanie closed the lint screen. The words hit harder because the woman said them kindly. Melanie returned to the counter with the checklist in her hand. It was not complicated. It was not dramatic. It was a simple routine that had kept customers from wasting quarters and leaving angry. Tasha leaned beside her. When he stopped checking them, people started saying the dryers were getting worse. Melanie looked at the old laminated sheet again. Then she noticed a small note at the bottom, almost worn away by fingerprints. If dryers slow down, check drawer under counter. Melanie stood behind the counter with the dryer checklist in one hand. The note at the bottom pointed her to the drawer under the counter, the one Frank used to open when he thought nobody was watching. She had always assumed it held junk he refused to throw away. She pulled it open. Inside were rubber bands, old pens, a roll of masking tape, loose screws in a paper cup, and 3 folded receipts tucked beneath a flathead screwdriver. Tasha leaned closer. "I never looked in there." Melanie unfolded the first receipt. It came from a small appliance supply shop across town. The items were ordinary enough to seem almost worthless. Dryer knob, coin box spring, washer door seal, latch screws. Melanie checked the date. It matched the week a dryer knob had stopped turning smoothly, but the complaint had disappeared before she called anyone. She unfolded the second receipt. More small parts. Another coin box spring. 2 rubber feet for a washer that had been walking forward during heavy loads. A packet of screws for a dryer door latch. Not expensive, not impressive. Just the kind of things that kept a customer from standing at the counter angry with wet clothes in a basket. Tasha touched the edge of one receipt. He changed that dryer knob before Mrs. Pike came in with her blankets. Melanie looked up. Darlin Pike had been listening from the folding table. She gave a small nod. "I remember that knob. It used to slip in my hand. Then one morning it didn't." Melanie lowered her eyes back to the receipt. The third receipt had a grease mark near the bottom. One line made her stop. Coin box return spring. Her gaze moved across the room to the same coin machine where she had embarrassed her father. She could see Frank there again, bent slightly, listening instead of talking. He had not been wandering. He had been noticing the little things before they embarrassed her. Tasha spoke softly. "He never made a big deal of it." "No," Melanie said. Her voice came out thin. She folded the receipts carefully, slower than she had opened them. The small parts did not tell a grand story. That was what hurt. They told a daily one. A knob, a spring, a seal, a screw. Melanie looked from the receipts to the coin machine, then back to the drawer. Under the screwdriver, half hidden behind the paper cup of screws, was another folded note with Eddie Ramos's service stamp on the corner. Melanie slid the folded note out from under the screwdriver. It was thinner than an invoice, just a carbon copy service note with Eddie Ramos's stamp in the corner and a tear along one edge. The paper had been folded twice, the way Frank folded things he meant to keep but did not want anyone to notice. Tasha leaned on the counter, close enough to read but careful not to touch it. "What does it say?" she asked. Melanie opened it slowly. The first line was plain. After-hours access approved by Frank Whitaker. Below that was the date, then the time. 9:45 at night. Melanie stared at it. The laundromat closed at 9. "That can't be right," she said. Tasha's face changed. "I remember that night." Melanie looked up. "You had that school fundraiser pickup the next morning," Tasha said. "All those bags of uniforms and towels. You were worried the front row wouldn't be ready." Melanie remembered the order. She remembered being tired. She remembered arriving the next morning and finding everything working. She did not remember asking how. The note continued in Eddie's blocky handwriting. Coin return cleaned. Spring reset. Door latch adjusted. 2 washers tested. No daytime interruption. Melanie pressed her thumb against the edge of the paper. "No daytime interruption," she repeated. Tasha looked toward the windows, where customers were still loading machines under the flat white lights. He used to say repairs cost more when people had to wait around mad. Melanie's eyes moved to the next line. Frank stayed during service, swept coin area after work, tested return twice. She saw him there in her mind, alone after closing. The whole laundromat quiet except for one washer draining and the hum of the fluorescent lights. No customers. No thank you. No daughter watching. Just Frank with his cap low, waiting beside the machine so Eddie could finish before morning. Darlin walked over with her empty laundry basket tucked against her hip. She read Melanie's face before she read the paper. "Your father was here after closing?" she asked. Melanie nodded once. "Darlin did not say I told you so." She only looked toward the coin machine and sighed. "That sounds like him." Melanie folded the note back along its old creases, then opened it again because she was afraid of missing something. At the bottom, Eddie had written one last line. "Customer unaware. Frank requested no charge interruption before opening. Melanie stood still. All morning she had thought the laundromat kept running because problems were small. Now she was beginning to see the problems had stayed small because someone kept meeting them after everyone else went home. Kevin came in through the side door after school with his backpack hanging off one shoulder. He stopped when he saw his mother standing behind the counter with papers spread in front of her. Tasha was quiet beside her, and Darlene Pike was sitting near the folding table with an empty basket in her lap. "Did something happen?" Kevin asked. Melanie folded the after-hours note, but not fast enough. "I'm trying to understand some things your grandfather left around here." Kevin looked toward the coin machine first. That small glance made Melanie pause. "What?" she asked. Kevin shrugged. Grandpa always checked that tray. Melanie's voice softened. "You knew that? I mean, yeah." Kevin dropped his backpack near the counter. "He said wet quarters make the return stick." Tasha looked at Melanie. Kevin walked to the coin machine like he had done it before. He lifted the old change tray, tilted it slightly, and wiped the underside with his sleeve. A small folded paper slipped from behind the back lip and landed on the counter below. Melanie stopped breathing for a second. Kevin picked it up. "Is this one of his?" It was not a receipt. It was not a service slip. It was a small square of notebook paper, creased thin from being folded and unfolded. Kevin opened it before Melanie could tell him not to. His face changed as he read. "What does it say?" Tasha asked. Kevin read it out loud, slow and careful. "Dry tray before opening. Wet quarters make the fourth washer stick. Check return twice if towels are heavy." Melanie closed her eyes. The words were so simple they almost hurt more than the invoices. No drama, no blame. Just a little note from a man who saw the same problem happen enough times to stop it before anyone got mad. Kevin looked at the fourth washer, then at his mother. "Grandpa wasn't messing with it," he said. "He was stopping it from sticking again." Melanie did not answer. Kevin folded the note back along the same lines. "He showed me once. He said machines tell on themselves if you don't rush them." Darlene stood slowly with her basket. "That sounds exactly like him." Melanie took the note from Kevin and held it beside the first repair slip. The whole laundromat kept moving around her. Quarters dropped. Washers filled. Dryers turned. But now every small sound seemed to ask the same question. What else had Frank been hearing that she had trained herself to ignore? Melanie unlocked the laundromat before sunrise the next morning. For once, she did not turn on the open sign first. She stood in the dim room with the fluorescent lights flickering awake above her, listening to the washers settle and the dryers tick as they cooled. Kevin had wanted to come with her, but she told him no. This was something she had to feel with her own hands. She walked to the coin machine and pulled out the old change tray. It was damp again, just a thin film of water from someone's wet towel the night before. Melanie took a clean rag and dried it slowly. Then she checked the coin return twice, the way Kevin had read from Frank's note. The first drop sounded clean, but the second quarter hesitated for half a breath before falling into the tray. She stared at it. "That's what you heard," she whispered. Next, she went to the dryer row and pulled the lint screens one by one. The first two were clear enough, but the third was packed along the edge with gray fuzz and a strip of blue thread. She remembered Frank's hands doing the same work while she rushed past him with invoices and customer bags. Back then, she had seen delay. Now she saw prevention. She took the laminated dryer checklist from the counter and followed it line by line. Morning clear. Midday check. Towels after heavy loads. Watch left side vent. Nothing on the sheet was fancy. That made it harder to dismiss. At the back counter, she opened Frank's washer service log. The pages did not sound like a man trying to prove himself. They sounded like a man trying to leave the next person less trouble. She read the notes out loud, softly. Slow drain after blankets. Check door seal. Listen before weekend. The fourth washer sat quiet near the front row. Melanie walked to it and placed one hand against the cool metal rim. She felt foolish for a second. like the customers in her head were watching her become the old man she had mocked. Then she remembered Frank standing there, not embarrassed by listening. So she listened. At first, there was only the building, pipes settling, a dryer belt squeaking, traffic outside. Then she started the fourth washer on a short, empty cycle and waited. The drum turned clean for the first minute. Then came the sound. A faint, uneven knock under the spin, soft enough to disappear if she was thinking about bills, customers, or pride. Melanie stepped back. Her eyes moved from the washer to the coin machine, then to the checklist and the open log on the counter. For the first time, the laundromat did not look old to her. It looked like something her father had been holding together piece by piece. And now that she could finally hear what he had heard, she had to decide what to do before he walked back through that door. Melanie did not turn the open sign on right away. She stood behind the counter with the washer service log open, the dryer checklist beside it, and the original coin box repair slip held flat under her palm. For several minutes, she did only the work Frank had always done quietly. She dried the change tray, tested the coin return, cleared the lint screens, and listened to the fourth washer until the faint, uneven knock came again. Then she went to the back room. Frank's old repair stool was still under the counter, pushed back where no one would see it. Melanie pulled it out, wiped dust from the seat, and carried it to the coin machine. She set it down in the same spot where Frank used to sit when his knees bothered him. Next, she found a clear plastic sleeve in the office drawer. She slid the coin box repair slip inside, smoothing the crease with her thumb before pinning it to the backroom maintenance board. Under it, in careful letters, she wrote one line. Check the small things first. Kevin stood near the counter, watching without saying much. Tasha had come in early too, and when she saw the stool back beside the coin machine, she looked down and smiled a little. The bell over the front door rang. Frank stepped inside, wearing his old cap and the same jacket he had worn the day before. He paused when he saw Melanie standing by the coin machine instead of behind the counter. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Melanie held out the pencil from beside the washer service log. Her voice was quiet. The fourth washer sounds off. Frank looked at the pencil, then at the stool, then toward the back room where the repair slip sat in its clear sleeve. His face did not change all at once. It softened slowly, like a man deciding whether it was safe to believe what he was seeing. Melanie swallowed. I should have asked why you were reaching for the tray. Frank took the pencil, but he did not step past the hurt like it had vanished. You embarrassed me pretty good, he said. I know. No speech followed. No easy hug fixed it. Melanie only nodded toward the washer and moved aside so he could listen. Frank sat on the stool, leaned forward, and rested one hand on the coin machine while the laundromat warmed around him. Kevin watched his grandfather mark one short note in the log. Tasha turned on the open sign. Melanie checked the lint-trap without being told. In the back room, the coin box repair slip stayed inside its clear sleeve under the words Melanie had written. Check the small things first.